Okay, I know we are light right now. Glad you are here, Lainey. But for those of you who watch this on the playback and people who come in a little bit late, I'm going to start out just giving a few general remarks because I know people will come in here and I don't want to lose too much in the formal introduction. But gosh, it must be a year and a half now, maybe even 2 years ago, one of my coaches who really wants to differentiate in um, customer service, really building relationships with clients. I was working with him in my Apex Coach business development program. So he is a coach who has his own business, and we were just talking about differential. What are people going to know you for? What do you really bring to the table that's a specialization? And we really centered on, and I agreed with him that his big focus already is, and his passion is for customer service. So in just brainstorming ways to make that more relevant to his clients, make it more knowable to potential clients, we were brainstorming about what we could do. And I just brought up the idea, wouldn't it be great if we could do some social science research and really start to zero in on what makes clients more successful, more from just, as a lot of quantitative research indicates, a certain diet method and so forth. But, what are some of the skills, the coaching skills? So he thought that was a great idea. I pulled in Kevin Brunacini, who is my co-coach in the Flexible Dieting Institute, because for his PhD, that's one of the things he did. He created an assessment tool for long-term diet maintenance success. So I had these guys in my pocket and thought, okay, now how are we going to do this? What are we going to actually do? And so I contacted another friend, Dr. Eric Helms, who's a research fellow at the Auckland, you know, uh, Institute of Technology, and he said, "Yeah, I that sounds amazing." And of course, I always have graduate students working on dissertations. Let me see if I have anybody interested in something like this. So the short version is two different graduate students wanted to do something like this, and they did two entirely different studies. I'm going to focus on one this week, and I'll probably go into the second half of it next week. And this particular one is, as I'll scroll down here and let you see the actual study title, the effect of client practitioner relationships on weight loss and weight maintenance in online weight loss. And I want to give you just a little bit of a background because remember, personal nutrition coaching did not exist 20 years ago. 15 years ago, it was just starting to kind of hit, not even the mainstream, just some people were starting to follow in my footsteps and do this. And part of it was because our company, the Diet Doc, created a licensing program. Unless you are a medical doctor or a registered dietitian, at that time, all 50 states were very clear because at that time, what was the American Dietetic Association had created legislation in every state to say, unless you're an RD or an MD, you cannot do nutrition consulting. So, as a path forward for people, because so many of my clients and my friends, my peers who were coaches and trainers in different areas, gym owners, they saw what I was doing in my space in Evansville, Indiana, with nutrition coaching, and I was creating weight loss programs that were very successful. Prior to that, of course, I had created the concept of macronutrient tracking as a diet methodology. I had created flexible dieting as a methodology. So I was using those and I was writing about those in the magazines. So everywhere I would go speak, people would say, "How can I do this? I want to do this. How help me? You should franchise Joe." And so we created this licensing program 18 or so years ago, and I knew we had to have an RD on staff and an MD on staff. We contracted with them to be our dietetics director and medical director, and off we went. That gave a legal ability for people to do this. Well, in the 15 ensuing years, everybody who wanted to be a nutrition coach, mostly, I would assume, unaware of the laws, they just did it. They just started coaching. They created their own companies and brands. And even though it's highly illegal, I think by sheer mass and the old axiom that possession is 9/10 of the law, now that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there doing this, it is so normalized that some state legislatures have even softened the laws. Like they have gone back into the books and they've made a differentiation between medical nutrition therapy and just kind of general nutrition education coaching. Not everybody, but still, for somebody to get in trouble for this, for a suit to be brought against them, I think it really takes some pretty gross negligence. There have been some cases already here and in other countries. And nobody is, quote, getting in trouble because, hey, you're doing this and you shouldn't. It's if you did something, with negligence or in a malpractice area, then you're liable still. But nobody's saying, hey, there's not a path forward for this. So it's almost being treated socially like personal training. There's no governing body. There's no licensing. You don't even have to be certified. It's just there's just this thing, an occupation, and hopefully you're doing it well. So that is a backdrop. That's how young this industry is. And so when Eric Helms had agreed that a couple of his graduate students would look into this, we first had to decide, and not me, I wasn't included in the studies, but he asked me, could we use your database? You're the only person who's been doing it this long. You have 20 years worth of licensed coaches, now certified coaches, a database of tens of thousands of former clients. Can we, for survey analysis, survey research, and even doing interviews, can we use your company? So, of course, since this was my idea for this research in the first place, I had to say yes. I didn't have to, but I wanted to, and I thought this is a great idea. We have talked, my internal staff and I have talked for years and years and years and years about trying to be better at collecting data. How could we retrospectively really go back and try to analyze what we do well, what we don't do well, how many of our clients have maintained weight loss for certain lengths of time. It just seemed like an insurmountable task with that much history and having really not had things in place to capture that. So I was super excited that this would be done, but also you have to realize that this put me in an absolute place of terror because now somebody was going to be combing through my company and they're going to tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And kind of like a Yelp review, you only decide that you'll participate in something like this, the research, the survey, the interview, if you really have something horrible to say or something good to say. But hey, I'm a scientist. I'm open. If we've done something bad, I want to know so we can make it better. And if we've done something great, I want to know that. So off we went. These two graduate students spent over a year doing this research, and here we are. They just sent me the links this week, and they're both right around 100 pages. So we're not going to get through this first one, as I said, all in 1 week, but I at least want to go through the narrative portion because this particular study, which was done by asking retroactively clients from our company and clients, not just of us. Again, we have licensed more than 250 coaches. We have certified hundreds of coaches. So this includes potentially all of their clients. These are not just my clients. They're out there. I have no idea who answered. I have no idea who responded. All of that stuff is not disclosed to me. It goes through international regulatory ethics boards and so forth. They have to abide by those kind of standards. So I was not involved in this whatsoever. But in this particular study, as I'm going to show you, it is the effective client-practitioner relationships on weight loss and weight maintenance. And Rosemary, who did this part, Ariel is the student who did the second part. This study had four components, and she broke it up into four chapters. So let me explain, those four things. But one thing worth mentioning as kind of my own personal acknowledgement is for Eric Helms to, trust our company and my resources to his students to conduct what is formative. When a graduate student is doing research and this is their dissertation, a lot of times this kind of becomes the foundation of their career. This is something that they put so much time and energy into that it often creates a sense of even deeper curiosity, because now these students, if you could read this whole study, which it's open to you, they did full literature reviews on the topic. So Rosemary had to go through and look at every single study ever conducted on this topic. So she is well on her way to becoming an expert in this topic. So again, for them to all spend the time, energy, resources to dive into our company as the trove to gain the research, it's exciting, it's humbling, and it forever puts us in this space now of a foundational part of this kind of research. Because as Eric said in our private conversations when it was all finished, this really does open the door to new research, because personal nutrition coaching as a legitimate occupation is so new, and you're the only guy who's been around for 20 years collecting data that long. It really gives us a chance to see that era, and then phases and steps in this industry moving forward will be different. But this gives us a snapshot of the foundational work that was done to launch the entire industry. So some pretty exciting stuff. It'll take me a long time to really dig through each research piece and pull out every single thing. But I'm getting a pretty good handle on this first one and what Rosemary was finding. But here are the four components. And this is just kind of stated in her introduction as the premise. The aim of this research was to explore the relationship between perceived client practitioner relationships and its effect on weight loss and weight maintenance in online weight loss of clients and nutrition coaches. The specific research questions were: how is the quality of the client practitioner relationship, frequency of contact during the maintenance phase, and the help with assimilating health and fitness into the client's new life associated with weight loss and weight maintenance. To A, how are different weight-related behaviors associated with weight loss and weight maintenance? So that gets into more some of the quantitative stuff we'll do later. B, how are eating behaviors associated with weight loss and weight maintenance? And then the third or fourth component: how is the quality of the client practitioner relationship, frequency of contact during the maintenance phase, and the help with assimilating health and information into the client's new life associated with eating behaviors. So that's for going on into weight maintenance instead of just weight loss. So the focus here, if you're going to pick out one phrase, and that's why I kind of emphasize it in my tone, the aim of this research was to explore the relationship between the perceived client practitioner relationship. So these were surveys and interviews with clients where they are retrospectively saying, here's what my experience was like, here's what I learned, here's what I did, here's what I've been able to take with me, including the tangible results. But it's from their perspective. The second study done by Ariel was from the perspective of the coaches, and that was interesting. Eric and I talked about that, and that does truly get into some social science, into your perceptions of your own intelligence and value and how well you do as a professional, as a coach. So totally separate from this. This is from the client's perspective. So in just the literature review portion, I think there's some really good things of value for us to review. As research shows that weight control relies on complex interactions between genetic, biological, psychological, environmental, social, and cultural processes, it follows that interventions solely focused on nutrient intake or solely on habits and behaviors may not change patients' underlying values or ideas around stress and eating. Long-term weight loss may therefore not be possible without also addressing the cognitive and emotional aspects of eating habits. Individuals who pursue self-directed weight loss may not learn the importance of weight-related behaviors or how to improve psychological eating behaviors, and thus, without professional guidance, may have a more challenging time with long-term weight control. So again, it's kind of an extension of Rosemary's premise. Two things. I totally agree. Matter of fact, I saw a great post today by a fellow coach who jokingly said, I can't believe it's 2022 and some coaches think all you have to do is give people macros, like give people numbers. And so Rosemary here says that weight loss is such a complex thing between biology and sociology and psychology and environment and culture that solely focusing on nutrient intake or solely on behaviors is just probably not going to cut it. And then of course she backs it up with a very robust literature review. That's why this study is more than 100 pages. It's not just a study, her survey study. It's literally outlining the whole problem and doing a literature review. So her final sentence here is that somebody who is self-directed is just not going to have the advantage of the guidance. A good coach brings something of tremendous value to the table, or potentially can. That's what we would hope for in this study, is to explore what that advantage really is, if there is one. So notably, the most successful weight maintenance observations to date were from the Look Ahead Action for Health and Diabetes, the acronym study, which included over 5,000 participants randomized to receive either ongoing practitioner-led maintenance coaching or usual care. At the 8-year follow-up, over 25% of participants receiving the maintenance phase coaching were still maintaining their initial weight loss of greater than 10% of body weight, and over 50% were maintaining a clinically meaningful weight loss of greater than 5%, both of which were significantly greater than usual care. So this is big. This is a theme sentence, so to speak, in this research. In this particular, because we've done research reviews where anecdotally or as just a tentacle of whatever research we were looking at. I remember a couple that, one dealt with hunger and dieting, one dealt with biofeedback mechanisms and hunger. And I remember particularly one study where if you wanted to, after the study, you could continue with a year of support. So even though these participants in an 8 or 16-week study, 12-week study, it's like, here, you've done your job, great, good luck, here's your paycheck. But they said, hey, if you want to keep going, it's just kind of part of the camaraderie of the study and you guys being participants. If you want some, a year of coaching, a year of kind of debriefing, we'd be happy to do that, which is amazing. I mean, what a great thing. And then that actually became part of the study, because the people who took advantage of that, they kept their weight off at a substantially higher degree. And so it's like, whoa, wait a second, that wasn't even part of the study, but we found something here. Like, people who had some level of support in this particular field, in this genre, it was meaningful. So this study, 5,000 participants, that's a high study group. 8 years is a massive amount of time to consider for weight loss recidivism or success. And we consider it in diet research greater than 10% weight loss. We consider that significant. Like, that's kind of the benchmark. If somebody loses greater than 10% of their body weight, that math is pretty easy. I'm 180 pounds. That'd be me losing 18 pounds. If you lose that much and you keep it off for a year, that's a big deal. That's a benchmark that not a lot of people achieve. Matter of fact, I think at the end of 1 year, about 50% of people have gained their weight back. At the end of 2 years, 80% of people have gained their weight back. At the end of 5 years, I believe it's more than 90%. So because these people had ongoing support, 25% kept more than 10% of their weight off. 50% kept more than 5%. So that's a pretty big deal. So in part of Rosemary's literature review, she's making the case that some form of counseling and coaching and support does exist. And there is this new thing called nutrition coaching, online nutrition coaching, health coaches, nutrition coaches. But also there has been research in these fields prior, and it's not super popular research. I haven't seen a lot of this cited. And going through Rosemary's literature review, it was very enlightening. There is quite a bit there, in that they don't call it coaching. That's kind of a new thing. But if you're looking at research in the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, there have been studies where they do look at counseling and support and so forth. And I think part of that may have been inspired. This is just my thought. Because we know Weight Watchers has been around forever, and that was kind of their bedrock premise, right? Like you come in, you're part of this group. It's almost like a 12-step group, and you have ongoing support. So let's move along. A large randomized control of 314 participants by Wing et al. Compared weight maintenance in a control group receiving quarterly newsletters. So this is kind of interesting to another study in this lit review. So some people were receiving quarterly newsletters like, hey, rah, rah, here's some tips, just in this little newsletter. And then another group was getting face-to-face or online weight maintenance intervention. So true human support. And that emphasized weight maintenance behavior, such as daily self-weighing and self-regulation. And the face-to-face intervention resulted in improved weight maintenance compared to the control group. The weight gain of only 2.4 kilograms compared to 4.9, so twice as effective if you are getting a real live person there to support you. In over 18 months, the percentage of subjects who regained 2.3 kilograms or more was significantly higher in the control group compared to the face-to-face, etc. So again, just more data show that there is something to having that support. A study by Svetky and colleagues randomized over 1,000 successful weight loss maintainers into an intervention consisting of either monthly personal contact with a weight loss practitioner, 10 to 15-minute phone calls, unlimited access to a tech-based maintenance intervention, or a self-directed control group. So again, no support, self-directed, and followed them for 2 years. At 30 months, those in the personal contact group regained significantly less weight than those in the self-directed control group. Similarly, a study by Wing and colleagues compared weight maintenance phase, blah, blah, blah. So same thing, study after study after study after study shows that coaching, I'm going to say, because it's not discussed in the literature review, nobody said like these coaches were better than these coaches, or this method was better than this. It's just having somebody there that you could talk to and get information. So I already kind of mentioned that. Indeed, a meta-analysis of 29 studies found more than half the weight loss was regained within 2 years, or the 80% was regained at 5 years. Okay, so I was slightly off when I mentioned that earlier. So now the method. So now we're going to get into Rosemary's actual method for this particular study in our pool of former clients and coaches. This cross-sectional qualitative study aimed to explore the experiences of weight loss clients when working with a weight loss coach to gain insight into how their perceived relationship with their practitioner affected their success with weight loss maintenance. Interview participants were former or current clients of the Diet Doc, a US-based weight loss coaching company in which coaches are trained in a consistent manner in an attempt to align with current evidence-based weight loss practice. Further, coaches have access to a multidisciplinary team of support consultants, including medical doctors, dietitians, physical therapists, strength and conditioning specialists. Participants in this study had to be 18 years or older and maintaining at least 10% body weight loss from when they worked with the Diet Doc. Practitioners and employees of the Diet Doc and their families were excluded, blah, blah, blah. So the semi-structured interviews lasted about 45 minutes, and questions explored the following topics, such as their initial motive for hiring a Diet Doc coach, expectations of working with a weight loss practitioner, experiences of weight loss and weight loss maintenance, behaviors and lifestyle during and after working with a Diet Doc coach, relationship with food, and supported experience during weight loss and maintenance phases. So, this is, this is something that I wish we could report better on. but I was able to provide them a database, like I said, of tens of thousands of people. And that doesn't mean that every single person in our database would meet criteria. They wanted them, for example, as you just heard, to be over 18 years old, which most are, of course, um, to have maintained their weight loss of 10% or greater. So we're already pre-qualifying that these people had some level of success. But, some people haven't worked with us. Some of these people go back 20, 25 years. Um, you have the issue of who's going to actually respond to a survey request. We emailed them directly, or I gave the database to the researchers and they emailed them. Um, we were allowed to post this on our social media as they were, and it was a call for participation in research. And so if you participate, here's what we're asking you to do: fill out the survey that'll take about 15 minutes. Um, and then if you were selected, or if you agreed to do an actual interview, then that was kind of another step up. So we wanted to get as many interviews as possible and as much of the actual surveys as possible. So I have to say, I was hurt a little bit, hurt my feelings that only 6 people qualified and wanted to do the interviews. But I do get it. Like, if somebody just emailed me and said, "Hey, you just bought a car from so and so dealership, would you do a 45-minute interview?" I'd be like, no, like, I'll give you a 2-second statement or something, like, I like the car. But this is a lot to ask of people. But we did get over 100 and some of the surveys by selecting out, and I keep saying we, it's not me, I'm not involved in this study, but the researchers using our pool of former clients. They were able to use almost 100. But so we're a huge weakness of this study is that you only got 6 interviews. And out of tens of thousands of people, 20 to 25 years, you certainly can't say, wow, we found something definitive. What you can do is look at this as almost 6 anecdotal people. 6 people were willing to talk about this. How many had good experiences? How many wish their experiences had been better? Um, like I said, I wish we had 600, but we have 6. And one of the things that I like that Rosemary did was she used a lot of quotes. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of quotes from these 6 participants. And I think because they are so consistent, even though there are only 6, it does give us a pretty good picture. So it just happened to work out that there were 3 male, 3 female, average age 55 years old, worked with us up to 2 years, 6 months to 2 years. 3 of them worked with us for 2 years. The amount of years since working with their coach with us, all the way up to 13 years ago, that's remarkable that somebody would want to, the 11 and 13 year, even 8, 9, do that. So, so there we go. That's the population that went through the actual interviews. Next week, when we do the quantitative analysis of actual weight loss and behaviors, and doing statistical analysis on what that means, that's dealing with the survey. So then when you look at those almost 100 people, and we can say, okay, they lost this much weight, here's what they related to, here's what they perceived were the most important factors. And Rosemary and Eric analyzed exactly how much value or significance you can weigh to that. That's all coming up next week. Today is just these 6 people doing deep interviews and having a recall opportunity on what the experience was like in those initial 4 research questions that Rosemary listed. So I'm gonna read a couple quotes here, because as Rosemary decided after, and I know what it's like to write a book or a literature review or try to interpret research that you're gathering in real time, and you start connecting some dots, you start seeing some themes. So her first theme was in, like, why did you even decide to do this, to the client? they all described it as a life-defining event. And those of you who have been involved in our research reviews in the past, I mean, this should resonate because I talk all the time that people who just on a whim, like, yeah, I think I'm gonna lose 10 pounds. I'm gonna go hire somebody, or I'm gonna do a diet, buy a book, whatever. I'm gonna, just it's just kind of an afterthought. You may as well not, because losing weight, getting into that metabolic switch, metabolic positioning opportunity physiologically, it takes some mental bandwidth. It takes some work. It takes more than people think. And so it doesn't surprise me that these people who had lost 10% or more of their weight and kept it off for up to 13 years, they said it was a big deal to them. It was a life-defining event to make this decision and hire a coach. And I think if we can't all say that, if we're clients or if we as coaches have clients and then we can't get them to be in that headspace, it is a big disadvantage. So I'll read some of these quotes. This one person said, I had just had a major health scare. So ultimately, it was about having more years left in my life and doing what I needed to do. That's why I hired a diet coach. Another person turning 70, was big. I mean, it's just like, it's funny that she used the exact words here, like the transcript. It's like I was going through retirement. I lost my dad. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on. And when I just kind of picked myself up again, it was like, okay, we've got a lot of life left to live here. So let's do it right. I love that. I mean, I just love that people like that was their attitude. This is a big deal. Another participant said I was ready. I guess finally was ready, which is a huge, huge thing. And I agree. Um, Another person, I had really been trying to lose weight most of my life, not really successful, just not having enough knowledge. Another person, the knowledge that I gained that was the first time I'd ever done any serious study of nutrition. They really educated me well on it. And then another person, it was all down to what they taught you, what she taught me. I got what I learned from them, and it was just, this is where you have to behave if you want to maintain. So now they have moved from, and this is kind of the second point in Rosemary's research, it was not just a life defining event. They viewed their diet doc coach as a teacher and a guide. And that was always the premise of my company. I mean, from day one, when I was 27 years old, matter of fact, my first client I ever sat across the table from for nutrition consulting, I was 24. But when I had made it my entire career and business model, bought a facility, and this is what I was doing full time, I was 27 years old. And it was all about the education. It was all about teaching people the science. Here are the myths. Here's what you don't want to do. And it has to be a participatory learning process. You have to learn something. My job is to teach you to become independent with your own health and weight maintenance. And of course, when we started our licensing program, and I'm developing a staff to help develop other coaches in our licensed ecosphere, that was what was the company culture, was very, very technocratic. We are teachers. We are showing you the science. That's why even in my first book, going back to 2008, or maybe it was even earlier than that, is the building blocks of nutrition. And I explain metabolic positioning, which is a form of explaining the metabolic switch physiologically, and just tracking macronutrients. I mean, that's to me, that's a big part of this premise. Even though Rosemary here is talking about, and you're going to see this in the next couple quotes, the client practitioner relationship, that relationship is built on a knowledge transfer. Here's what you need to know. I'm not going to just give you a meal plan and tell you what to do. You're going to learn stuff. That has always been the central company ethic in teaching macronutrient tracking. And through the years, as most of you know, we've kind of softened that into an approach of, well, let's help clients with where they are. Everybody doesn't need to start at the same point. Maybe they don't start with that, and we kind of gravitate in a little bit of a different pathway toward something more appropriate for them. But in these beginning stages, especially, these clients that were from 13 and 11 years ago, 9 years ago, they are rightly recalling an emphasis on education. So I think I got a couple more here. So this is just Rosemary's summary of this section on the teacher and guide aspect of coaching. Participants viewed their client-practitioner relationship as a long-term relationship. Clients kept in touch with their coaches long after they finished their professional relationship, even up to 13 years later. Being connected through social media, particularly Facebook and Facebook groups run by the coach, allowed the coaches to be in continual presence in the clients' lives. Clients also spoke of their ability to reach out to their coaches at any time after the professional coaching had ended, and how their coaches would check in with them and help them with problems. Then a participant direct quote, "It's more of a friendship than a client relationship." Another participant here, "It's a relationship that we forged, and it's still very important. I'm not just checking in as often." I got to tell you, like right here, this is me winning. Like my 25-year career, when I can have former clients who say it's a friendship, it's a relationship, that was the most important aspect of this. I don't even know who these clients are. Like they're not even my clients. They're, could be other coaches who have even long gone from our company. But at the same time, having created a company where this was transferred as the company ethic, that's a big deal to me. I mean, I got to say, like this, that's what I would hope was transferred. I know it's not in every case. I know every coach is different. I know every client relationship is different. But out of these 6 people who responded, they certainly got what I had intended. And that's the importance of this study, because it's not just us. We're certainly not the only game in town, quite far from it. As this industry continues to grow, this is the standard that we want. These are the best practices. This is the place inside of a nutrition coach's scope of practice they can shine. And it's the most important thing. It is that client relationship. It is that trust. It's what, as Rosemary correctly perceived, their perception of that relationship. And a client can't perceive a good, warm, healthy relationship unless that coach is responding as such, proactively and so forth, from the teaching and guiding to the true compassion and empathy. So back to the competency part, back to the technocratic transference of actual knowledge. Coaching with the Diet Doc help participants act as their own coach, which was one of our taglines. I mean, I used to say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you'd hear me say that 10 times an hour. I want you to become your own coach. It's in our first books. It's in all of our curriculum. My goal is to help you become your own best coach. But I will say now, after reading this research, it does seem that my goal of like independence, hey, you've done it, you've learned everything you need, fly the nest, go, you're free. That's not exactly the answer. The second half of my career has been focused on teaching our coaches to create community that extends beyond their weight loss phase, because as Howard Schultz of Starbucks famously said, people need like a third space. You got your home life, your work life, then we all typically have some hobby or community or group that we kind of identify with. And for a lot of people, as you'll see in the next set of slides, they are becoming new people, and they're becoming healthier, they're becoming health conscious. And if they don't have a community to stay plugged into, not fly the nest and be independent, then it's not as effective. And so that's one thing that I'm glad in the last several years I've noted and kind of steered our company in that direction. But I did like that they reported this, at least from this phase of our history. Coaching with the Diet Doc help participants act as their own coach, and they felt they had learned nutrition and mindset tools and how to internalize accountability. This led to increased confidence in the participants' ability to maintain their weight over a long time, and their ability to lose more weight if they wanted. Weight gain was seen as less intimidating, as now they felt they had the tools to return to the weight they desired. Feelings of internalized accountability. How many times do I talk about internal, like intrinsic motivation. Internalized accountability were cited as reasons clients were able to continue successful weight control without daily input from their coaches. Food diaries and macro tracking were the main self-accountability tools used long-term after coaching finished. Most participants either continued tracking food well after reaching their goals or would start tracking food at any time they felt they needed to get their diet back under control. And that, that goes along with a lot of research. When you look at the 4 or 5 top behaviors that are common denominators for successful weight loss maintainers, there's always some form of food tracking, some kind of objectivity. There's continued weight maintenance, or not weight maintenance, weight monitoring, just keeping an eye on that bottom line. There's always a thread of consistent intentional exercise. Ironically, this always shows up, and it's so weird. I get it, but it's still kind of weird. Like eating a good breakfast, like setting the tone for the day. In the National Weight Control Registry, in this study, eating breakfast, a good protein kind of based breakfast. So I know the research. I've taught it to you guys in the past. There are tons of studies that show, eating different types of breakfast, and then even in just a completely untracked ad libitum way of eating later in the day, people just instantly eat less food, usually around 400 calories less, just because I had a better breakfast. So that's important. But anyway, helpful tools for long-term maintenance included exercise, food logs and practice of food tracking, following macro targets, meal prep time, drinking water, prioritizing protein, and regular weighing. Coach is also credited with helping clients change their mindset around weight loss, which contributed to the success of weight loss maintenance. Mindful eating was a common mindset change, followed by the recognizing of food value as fuel or nourishment. So, I mean, everybody talks about this now. Since we pioneered this whole thing starting 25 to 30 years ago, a lot of the things we were doing, we were just surmising or brainstorming, like what do we need? And we're obviously being sensitive to our clients' results. But, bringing in a psychology piece and mindset, that was a big part of our company's history. And that continues. And I think so many people, even a nutrition coach who doesn't have a background in psychology, I have a master's in social psychology, and we've had other people in the company at different levels, but there's so much information out there. Like, you can learn as a coach how to do motivational interviewing. You can learn to be a better listener. You can learn all kinds of things that help you just be a better, more compassionate coach. And to help look with clients, this is one of the things I teach our clients we certify. You're not a physician, you're not a mental health therapist, but within your scope of practice, you can ask great questions. You can help clients uncover blind spots that they have, or places where they are exhibiting some uncontrolled emotional dissonance with their eating behaviors and their attitudes toward food. You can help them identify those. You can discuss those. You're not diagnosing anything. You're not trying to create some kind of a curative approach. But it's just so rare for a coach today not to include some kind of behavioral component, even just in their conversations. So, that shows up here as well, which I think is important. Participants, this is so huge, guys. I talk about this one with you ad nauseum as well. The fact that one of my favorite things to tell people is, you want to lose 100 pounds, you want to lose 50 pounds, you want this big change in your life. That is not the finish line. You cannot look at that as the goal. You need to start becoming that person today. When I lose 100 pounds, what will my life be like? I need to start doing that today. Much like the old social cultural mantra, if you want what somebody else has, do what they do. You want to, what do people who have lost 100 pounds, what do they do? How do they eat? How do they view exercise? What are their behaviors? That's who you are starting today on day one of your weight loss journey. And this came across in this research. Participants spoke of their lifestyle post weight loss as their new normal, and coaches were credited with kickstarting participants on this path toward health and wellness, with changing the client's mindset around health and wellness and how it's incorporated into who they were as a person. So here's a quote from one of the participants in the research. Now it's kind of like this is the new normal and this is the new me. It's actually the old me, which some of them don't remember. I remember this as me, talking about like people in his life or her life. I remember this as me. I've always thought, this me was inside here. So what a great way of saying, yeah, thank you, Lainey. Like, I knew this me was in here somewhere, and now it's who I really am. I'm a better version of that old me, and that makes me a new me, but I'm still me. I mean, I know that sounds like very maybe hard to follow, but I think you get it. This person is putting together those two pieces, that this has to be a new identity, but it's still you. It's not like you went through hypnosis. You did the work. You deserve the credit. You have polished these parts of your personality, and you added new skills. So it is a new identity. And I think that is also critical, as came across in the research. These new worlds and roles clients took on after coaching contributed to further accountability, as clients spoke of needing to walk the walk or feeling a kind of peer pressure or belonging to that group. So as you guys know, peer pressure is hopefully mostly positive. It can be negative, can be horribly negative. But if you're doing it for a good reason, for a good result, then that kind of social constructed self-felt peer pressure is good. It's how we make progress, because for whatever reason, internal and external, we've decided we want to be a better version. If we just followed the path of least resistance, would we just not eat whatever we want, whenever we want, whatever tastes best, high fat, high sugar foods? It's just what's good, so why not eat it all the time? If I'm showing any responsibility or restraint, it's because I feel I want that for some reason. And we can have all the intrinsic motivation in the world, and I hope we're building that muscle, but it still does help. This is where the community comes into play, communitas in ancient language, um, and that creates that positive accountability, which is just another way of saying positive support. Like, I have a support group, and these people care about me, and I care about them, and I'm going to help them as well. And part of that means that I'm going to walk the walk. So very, very important there. So these four themes, we're kind of wrapping this up. This is just the beginning. This is looking at not just the literature review portion of Rosemary's study. I hope I'm doing a good job. I don't know if she'll ever see this or not, as I'm trying to interpret what she just spent a year of her life doing. But these four themes from the six people that were interviewed at length, they got involved because it was a life-defining event for them. They really honed in on the fact that working with a diet coach was far more about the relationship than anything. That's what they took away as the most impactful. They absolutely felt like they had increased competency to a level they could become their own best nutrition coach. They could use these tools and come back to them when they needed. That was part of them being able to successfully maintain their weight loss as they did. And they identified with this whole process with a sense of newness. Like, I have become the better version of myself. That was my goal. I'm here. I love it. I'm keeping it. So I just think that was exceptional. I have to say, after reading this, I'm sure Eric is proud, because even just the writing throughout this study was just exceptional. So, Rosemary did a great job. She's graduated now. Once this research is concluded and published and so forth, they're already out of school. But chapter 4, which is the next phase of this particular study, is when we get into, as I said, the quantitative exploration of the client-practitioner relationship and its effect. So now, how much did you lose? What was that process like? That is what we will get to next week. So this really fit well. This series that we're doing right now on diet efficacy, it really just fit perfectly into it. So it was kind of good timing. So in the scope of what we're doing, this is actually part 4. If you haven't seen the previous 3, you might like them. We're talking about in diet efficacy, what makes a diet successful. What are the best ways of dieting? What does the research show us? Where can we steer our own interests as coaches or as weight losers? The person who would be doing this. What should I be thinking about? Is a low fat diet better than a low carb diet, or vice versa? What about meal timing? What about intermittent fasting? What about this? What about that? These are all the things. And these 2 studies do tell us a lot, and they fit into the series. This one, of course, being the fact that, as Rosemary said, self-directed weight loss pales in comparison to guided, coached weight loss, especially, obviously, if the coach is good, if the coach does take the time to build that relationship and make it not just about the technical aspects, but those plus the quality relationship. So I will wrap it up there and let you guys please jump in with any questions, because like I said, it took me 2 days when Eric gave me these links. It took me 2 days to even open them because I was so freaking scared of what this would say about my entire 25-year career and company. But so far, so good. We do learn some things in the quantitative part that are more than fair. Some ways, dieting is tough. It's tough for people for many, many reasons. And when you hire a diet coach, or me personally, it's not just magical that you're gonna have immediate and great forever success. But our stats, beat the averages. But there are still places that everybody can improve as an industry, and I'll be happy to share those next week. But that's this week in terms of the long-term qualitative interviews. Would be very happy to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm just thinking proud of you guys. I don't have anything great to say, but it doesn't surprise me. But I can't leave without saying, way to go.
Well, thank you.
You guys are awesome. So, yeah,
well,
you should be proud.
Like I said, coaches over 20 years did this. So a lot of good people with great hearts who have always been in it for the right reasons. All right. Well, on to part 2 next week. I'll post links to the actual studies because it is fun to go through. It's something that's, like I said, 100 pages and has so much literature review content. It really does just give you a good wide scope of the entire research, that's been out there. So you guys have an awesome weekend. I will see you next week if you can make it, and look forward to chatting again soon.